My very special honor today and my very special guest is none other than Mr. Paul Inniss, who is the Executive Vice President of Sagicor Insurance. He wears many hats within that group, including responsibility regionally and as far away as Panama. You didn't just end up here today. I'm sure you have quite a story. I've heard some of it from you, but I want you to tell us in your own words, about that journey and about that story, and hopefully through you, some of our younger viewers will understand what they in turn ought to do.
So sure, Vic, and that is quite true. Many people see where you have landed, but they haven't seen the journey, and in many respects don't know the journey. And my background and development is an interesting one. I actually, if I was to say to you that I never thought that I would be in the insurance business, one, and two, I never saw myself initially as a young kid as a professional per se within business. I actually saw myself as a career military officer. That was my dream. In addition to that, I actually also wanted to be a professional musician. So I ventured off, and after school, I tried entering the police band in those days as a young cadet. Unfortunately for me, the government that day did not have the funds to take on recruits. So I spent a little time, I think it was about 3 or 6 months, playing with the police band men and practicing and so forth and getting acquainted. And then at that point, the director said, well, there are no funds and you actually cannot be taken on. So I then pursued my next love, which was the military. So I applied to the military, and I thought I was a sergeant major in the cadets. I was actually the first sergeant major at Ellerslie in those days. And there's where I learned of my leadership ability and skill. I remember I was actually doing A-level accounting and economics. And I wasn't a bright kid. Well, I didn't consider myself a bright kid, given the standards of our school system. I learned differently. And I did my A-levels after school because I couldn't get into community college or transferred to Hartson College. So very early I realized that I never really saw myself as a failure, or I never looked at myself as weaker than anyone else. I actually always thought that I might not be able to do it the way somebody else did it, but if only I can figure it out. So the two letdowns for me in terms of not being able to get into the police band to pursue music, not being able to get into the military as an officer, did not stop me. I actually then did the alternate. I joined the Barbados Regiment and looked for a job. And I actually got a job at Haywood's as a cashier. And that was interesting because I wanted to pursue accounting. And while doing that at Haywood's, I was approached by a lady who then asked me if I would have an interest in working with her at a loss adjusting company. And at that point, I wanted to actually transition from the hotel. And I said yes. It was paying more money. And I actually initially went there as the accounts clerk. But then when I got there, I realized I did everything. And it's only in reading the loss adjusters reports that I found that the insurance business was more dynamic than anybody would ever tell you about. And it's from that experience that I then said to myself, and it's interesting, life always presents opportunities and you have to choose. And I remember being approached, I think it was the Barbados Hotel Association in those days. They were looking for an accounts clerk. So here was I at a juncture where I had to make a decision. Am I going to pursue accounting now? Or am I going to stick the insurance business? And I made a decision to stick the insurance business. I think I was fortunate in how I was able to develop, because I was able to work and study, and that required a lot of discipline. Where did I get that from? I got that from the orchestra. To play a clarinet required a lot of time and dedication. So when kids were out playing, having fun, I was actually sitting down at times practicing, because it was a very difficult instrument to me, and I wanted to perfect it. And some of that discipline also came from being a cadet. So again, the message I would have is that it is not all about work or study. You actually have to be a bit rounded in terms of the things that really make you who you are. I was then encouraged to move on to Consumers Guarantee Insurance, which was a young upstart creating havoc in the insurance business.
Did they not? CGI.
Yeah, and looking
The ads with Bruce and Peter, man.
value, agreed value.
Agreed value.
Agreed.
That was a game changer.
It was a game changer, created a lot of havoc. I think in the research, they would have figured out that insurance companies had become kind of complacent, laid back, lazy, and people took the time and do what they felt like. And at CGI, it was none of that.
There were the disruptors.
They were the disruptors. So they actually was just, and the other thing I like about the environment was that decisions were made in a very short space of time. So the learnings there then readied me for another opportunity that turned up that I did not know was on the horizon. A company out of Cayman Islands called Island Heritage decided that they want to venture south of Cayman and the Northern Caribbean markets. And they came to the Caribbean scouting for a candidate to open an office in Barbados. Actually, as I look back now, Vic, even where I am now, everything that I've done, because I've never had the same job twice, but every job and every workplace I've been to actually prepared me. And most of the time, even when you go through the pain in the job, you only recognize it after in your quiet moments, and you look back and you say, wow.
I want to go back to the very start where you talked about your music and your military passions and so on. And I want to ask, because I'm sure the audience is asking the question in their minds. Ask him, Vic, ask him. So did you continue with the clarinet? Do you still play?
Yes, I actually played the clarinet up till last weekend. If you were to go into my office now, you will see a clarinet, not in its case. I actually keep it just behind my desk, and a saxophone, because I then venture into playing the saxophones. Well, I started with alto, then move on to tenor sax, and then the soprano sax.
You play publicly?
So no, I don't play, but I probably, if you were actually to come to our office on Sunday, you'll find out that we have a 21-piece band.
It's been a refreshing chat. It's long overdue from my end, not your fault. We're just trying to coordinate the opportunities, but I thank you for coming down to Capital and giving us a glimpse into obviously a very private individual who works in a very public space. So thank you for sharing those insights, and I learned a lot about you this morning simply by asking a few questions and being able to elicit the answers.